everybody, and welcome to a video tour of historical Crossroads Village and Huckleberry Railroad. The village opened on July 4th, 1976 with 13 buildings. Today, there are 28 buildings here in the village. We believe you'll find an amazing collection of delights here at Crossroads Village, and through this tape, you'll enjoy Crossroads Village over and over again. Every day from early May through August, the village volunteers and staff work very hard to make each and every event something special for visitors. Volunteers and staff are clothed in the dress of the 1880s. Throughout the village, you'll see 1880 architecture. Young and old have come to love this yesteryear setting here at Crossroads Village. The village entertains thousands of visitors every year. The ticket booths are the gateway into the 1880s. The lifestyle you experience is of the time period between 1860 to 1880. The village has become one of Michigan's finest historical sites with a relaxing, laid-back atmosphere. On the left, as you enter through the gates of Crossroads Village, is the cream and green-colored Davison Depot. Originally built in Davison, Michigan around 1900, it was a flag stop. If someone wanted to ride the train, a flag was raised to signal the train to stop. The building now houses a waiting room, an operational telegraph office, and a gift shop. The Huckleberry Railroad is built on part of the roadbed of a rail line which originally ran from Flint to Fostoria, carrying passengers, lumber, and other freight. The name Huckleberry Railroad came about because the trip from Flint to Fostoria was at times so slow that the people could get off the train while it was moving, pick huckleberries, and get back on the train. Trains were preferred by lumbermen to the slower river routes. The track is narrow gauge, 3 foot wide instead of standard gauge, which is 4.5 feet wide. This was typical of the lumber trains of that era. The 38-ton Baldwin steam locomotive number 2 was used in the coal fields of Alaska. The 52-ton number 464, which is also a Baldwin steam locomotive, was purchased from Knott's Berry Farm in California. The passenger cars vary in age and origin, most coming from Mexico and the southwestern United States. And of course, no visit to the village would be complete without a ride on the Huckleberry Railroad. The Horton Caldwell building now houses the general store, the cafe, and the opera house. Built in 1869 by Dexter Horton and David Caldwell at the corner of Leroy and Caroline Street in Fenton, it was the site of many businesses, including a post office. The Opera House was used by churches, schools, and fraternal organizations. The FLT seen in the brickwork is a symbol of the Fraternal Oddfellows organization. General Tom Thumb of P.T. Barnum fame appeared in the Opera House in 1879. Don't leave the village without visiting the exciting entertainment of the Opera House. Whether it's a magic show, music from the 1880s, or a special 4th of July show, you're sure to enjoy the performance. The building was torn down and reconstructed at Crossroads and is 2/3 of its original size. The Manwaring building, also known as the print shop, was built sometime between 1830 and 1850 in Dryden, Michigan. Its Greek Revival style, it was used as a dry goods store and later converted into a bakery and ice cream parlor with an apartment upstairs. It was moved to the village and restored to use as a print shop. Much of the printed material you see in the village was typeset and printed in this print shop. The T.N. North and Son Bank was built in 1878 in Vassar, Michigan. Townsend North, the owner, took his son Frank into the business with him in 1882. Another of North's 10 children, daughter Eula, was the town librarian and lived for a time in an apartment above the bank. By 1926, the bank had consolidated with the Michigan State Savings Bank and then moved to a new building. After that, this old building was used mainly for storage. Rebuilt in the village, the walk-in vault and the decorative metal teller's cage are original equipment of the bank. The Fowler Barber Shop, built in 1883, served as a U.S. post office and later as a barber shop in the Clinton County community of Fowler. One of the barber chairs is over 120 years old. Barbers of that time period also pulled teeth, let blood, and provided baths. The Fowler Barber Shop is licensed by the state of Michigan, and on occasion, visitors can get their hair cut for only 25 cents. Teeth are pulled free of charge. The Clayton Township Hall was originally built in 1878 for $500 and was originally constructed on Seymour Road, 4 miles south of Flushing. It was donated to Crossroads Village as a gift from the citizens of Clayton Township and moved to its present site. Township halls were used for elections, dances, and meetings of government and social groups and were a very important part of any community. For a number of years, the Clayton Township Hall has been the site of our old-fashioned photo parlor. This is the George H. Durand Law Office. This Cape Cod-style structure was built between 1844 and 1872 in Burton Township by the Eldridge family. Restoration was sponsored in part by the Genesee County Bar Association and honors Durand, their first president. The town of Durand in Shiawassee County was named for this same man. It was typical for lawyers in small towns to work out of a small office in their home. Most of the work would have been wills, contracts, real estate, and trial work before the circuit judge, who traveled from town to town hearing cases, usually holding court in the town hall. The Mill Street Warehouse was first opened during the 1990 Christmas season and is used as a multi-purpose building. This building is available for rent. Interested parties should call the reservation office at the Genesee County Parks and Recreation Commission building in Flint, Michigan. It was designed along the lines of an 1880s warehouse and is where ice cream and food items are sold. The Atlas Grist Mill is an operational grist mill built around 1836 by Norman Davison at the intersection of Atlas and Perry Roads in Atlas. It remained in operation until 1942. Designated a state historic site in 1975, it was dedicated in the village July 4th, 1980. It's powered by water-driven turbines beneath the surface of the water. This way, the mill can operate in the winter even if the surface of the water is frozen. The grain is still stone ground, and you can purchase the products of the mill here in the village. Grist mills were one of the first businesses built in the settlement of a town, second only to its sawmill. A replica of the type of gazebo which would have been used in a typical village park or town square in Victorian times has been built at Crossroads Village. It's used for band concerts and other entertainment, as well as having numerous weddings held under its charming roof. Master's Cider Mill was located on Richfield Road in Richfield Township, just north of the village. It was donated to the village by George Masters. The press was built in Mount Gilead, Ohio, from an 1883 patent. It was purchased by John Cartwright of Davison in 1886 and was in continuous use until its move to the village. Apples were an important item of that time period. Believe it or not, cider was condemned by many as a prelude to alcoholism. The ice house was originally located on a farm south of Holly, Michigan. Tons of ice cut from Mott Lake and floated to shore are pulled up a wooden ramp and stored in the ice house. The ice house is insulated so well by sawdust in the walls of the building and between the blocks of ice that it remains frozen even during the hottest days of August. The ice that you'll see inside the ice house is the result of several days of hard work on the part of employees and volunteers who cut it from Mott Lake each February. They use old-fashioned tools and techniques to cut 100-pound blocks of ice from Mott Lake and pack it away inside this building. The Wisner Carriage House was built in 1878 to house a few horses and carriages owned by Judge Charles H. Wisner, son of Governor Joseph Wisner. It was moved to the village to spare it from destruction during the building of I-475, which runs through Flint. Wisner built Flint's first automobile here and called it the Buzz Wagon, a one-cylinder car driven in the Labor Day Parade in 1900. It's believed that it did not have brakes, and he stopped it by driving it into the side of the building. The building was last used as a veterinary hospital by two doctors, usually stored in the barn as a sleigh hearse and a hearse once used for children. In the 1800s, many children fell victim to childhood diseases. The Crossroads Lumber Company sawmill came from Millington, Michigan, and was still used toward the end of the lumbering era when the major stands of timber had already been cut down and the large sawmills had moved north. The village sawmill is typical of the portable steam-powered mills which could be moved from town to town where land was being cleared for expansion. The Coldwater Chapel was built by the Cohocton Evangelical Church in 1898 in Cohocton Township, Livingston County. The first services were conducted in German, the predominant language of that area in the 1800s. It became a Methodist church in 1968, but the congregation disbanded and sold the furnishings in 1972. The pews came from Rockford, Michigan, and the pulpit from Flint's Court Street Methodist Church. If you should decide to be married at Crossroads, you may like your wedding held in the chapel, where a volunteer may be assigned to your wedding to help everything go smoothly. The village hosts as many as 4 weddings each Saturday during the summer months. Also, you and your guests may be transported by a horse-drawn carriage. The Charles W. Parker Carousel was built about 1912 in Kansas by C.W. Parker and operated at Fairmount Park, Riverside, California. It has 36 jumping horses, 4 baby horses, and 2 chariots. The antique artisan band organ was built in North Tonawanda, New York, about 1925. Friends of the carousel have restored each horse, returning them to their original luster and beauty. Next to the carousel is the Superior Wheel, which was built in 1909 and was reassembled at the village. This exciting ride is popular with our visitors and a real thrill for kids of all ages. The blacksmith shop was built from the lumber of old buildings, and this reproduction represents a structure of the 1870s. By that time, the blacksmith had become a repairman, fixing carriages, cooking utensils, and machinery for local industries. Prior to this time, he would have also made a lot of objects needed for daily living. But soon the railroad was able to bring these products from major industrial cities to be sold in the general store. At the blacksmith shop, skilled craftsmen featured demonstrations of skills used over 100 years ago. The Calkins barn was built by Edmund Calkins about 1885 in Clayton Township. It was rebuilt at Crossroads Village in 1983 with an old-fashioned barn raising by Amish craftsmen from Indiana and friends and volunteers from Crossroads. Pennsylvania Dutch in style, the barn is 44 feet by 64 feet with a 37-foot peak, and it's built into a hill to provide a 7-foot basement. Old farm equipment is stored at this site. The Stanley School was built in 1883 on Bray Road, a quarter-mile south of Stanley Road near Crossroads Village. In use from 1883 to 1963, it was moved to Crossroads in 1975, where it was rebuilt with the original bricks and windows. It's still used each year by the Genesee Intermediate School District for a historical classroom experience for county children. The Fox House was built in Italianate style in 1876 by Jackson Fox near Crossroads at the corner of Carpenter and Branch Roads. Fox had two reasons for such a large house. He was a prosperous farmer, and he had 10 children. In the early 1900s, boarders rented rooms in the old Fox House. Viola Owen Kurtz lived here while she was a schoolmarm near Genesee at the Wentworth School. At that time, room and board was offered to ladies of good reputation. The Bazell House was built for his own family in 1854 by professional carpenter John Bazell. A prime example of Greek Revival architecture, it was located on East Court Street. This was the first building to be moved to Crossroads. It was known to local Flint residents as the Little Red House because it was painted that color for many years. It's typical of a middle-income home of the 1800s. It was the oldest standing building in Flint at the time it was moved to Crossroads Village to save it from destruction. The Eldridge House was originally built near the village of Genesee. It was built in about 1865. John Eldridge's wife was a cousin of President Robert Taft. She was related to the Ohio Taft family. It was occupied from 1873 by John, his wife, and 3 children. John was a farmhand who hired out to more affluent farmers. His daughter Carolyn worked as a saleslady in Flint from 1880 to 1889. In 1890, she went west as a traveling saleslady where she met and married a Colonel Hamner. After his death in 1932, she returned to Genesee and lived in the Eldridge House for the last years of her life. The meeting hall, or Flint Township Hall, was moved to the village from the corner of Corunna and Utley Roads. It cost $570 to build in 1877 to 1878. It was later used as the Corunna Road School. Here at the village, it's often used for special events and exhibits. The doctor's office is a reproduction of the office of Dr. Julius Barber, a homeopathic physician. It represents the beginnings of modern medicine. It houses not only many examples of old medical equipment, herbs, and medicine, but gives visitors a sense of what a doctor's office visit would have been like in the 1800s. This building was typical of its day. The doctor's office is bordered by an herb garden which contains medicinal herbs used by those practitioners. Many of today's medicines had their beginnings in just such herbs. The Durant Barn is also known as the Toy Barn. It was built between 1904 and 1906 for Billy Durant's automobile in Flint. Billy Durant and J.P. Dort organized the Durant-Dort Carriage Company in 1886. Billy Durant formed the Buick Motor Company in 1904 and later was one of the founders of General Motors. This is where you find wooden toys of the past and one of the many places you are sure to notice village hospitality. Here, visitors are encouraged to participate and do touch the toys. The Attica Hotel was built in Attica, Michigan in the early 1870s. Originally called the Williams House and later the Shermer House, it was operated by a succession of owners. At one time, it housed a post office. It presently houses a Christmas shop where you'll find many beautiful Christmas decorations. The foundation of Crossroads Village are its volunteers and staff. It's an experience not soon forgotten, a place where history lives on in the buildings, crafts, and lifestyles of an era long gone. You can imagine yourself in those times and know that every day new experiences can be found that echo back to the days of those Americans who pioneered this area and built all of the crossroads of Michigan. You'll want to return here often, where the 1800s live on, untouched by the modern world, waiting for you to visit again and again.